Jesus didn't just die for sin. He took the curse reserved for the worst offenders and broke it forever. Hi, friends. How do you know what the Old Testament really means? In this series, I am showing you how the Old and New Covenants fit together like a divine puzzle, each piece revealing Jesus, his character, and his covenant with us. Today, we're looking at Deuteronomy chapters 21 to 27. Deuteronomy 21, 22 to 23 says, "If someone has committed a crime worthy of death and is executed and hung on a tree, the body must not remain hanging from the tree overnight. You must bury the body the same day, for anyone who is hung is cursed in the sight of God. In this way, you will prevent the defilement of the land and the Lord your God is giving you as your special possession." Most death penalty cases in ancient Israel were resolved by stoning and involved the entire congregation as participants. In the case of the most atrocious crimes, such as idolatry or blasphemy, the offender may have been further degraded by hanging their body on a pole. The purpose of hanging was to signal the total rejection of their actions by society. All punishment in Israel had the dual purpose of serving as a reminder to the rest of the country how not to offend God with sinful behavior. Hanging a person alive was strictly forbidden in Israel, although some heathen nations did practice it. If a person was hanged, their body was considered accursed. However, Israel was still under the obligation to give them a proper burial before nightfall of the same day. All of this together was for the express purpose of not polluting the land. What's interesting is that Jesus took the curse of even the worst offenders on himself. At the hands of foreigners, he was hanged alive on a tree to die as a method of his execution. This is simply one more way that Jesus took all the curses known to man upon himself. The link is in Galatians 3:13. But Christ has rescued us from the curse pronounced by the law. When he was hung on the cross, he took the curse on himself for our wrongdoing. For it is written in the scriptures, "Cursed is everyone who is hung on a tree." Chapter 22 deals with a wide variety of moral obligations that help people live in respect of each other and how God created them to be. One of these is about the clothes we wear. Chapter 22:5 says, "A woman must not wear a man's clothing, nor a man wear woman's clothing. This kind of thing is an abomination to God, your God." This single verse has been used to define proper clothing in certain religious circles for generations, but I don't think it has anything to do with women never wearing pants. After all, when Moses gave this command, both men and women wore robes. If we bring this idea into the new covenant, then we have to find out what God's heart behind the command is. I think it has to do with men and women staying in their lane as far as how God created them to be. Men should never be afraid of being masculine, including all that implies for godly manhood and sexuality. It's not even about what work a man should do or shouldn't do. Godly men need to get in touch with God to find out how he wants them to be a man, and then be a man and teach boys to become men unashamedly. Also, men can't get in touch with their feminine side. God took it out of them whenever he fashioned Eve. If men want back their feminine side, they have to get married. Likewise, women should not be afraid or ashamed of their femininity or of how God created them sexually. It's not only a gift from God, it's a part of God. God has within himself all the characteristics of both men and women. Women are more like God than we think. And like God, we can do anything he calls us to do in life. If you don't believe me, take a read through Proverbs chapter 31. The world needs godly women to be physical and spiritual mothers to the next generation as much as it needs fathers. Men and women operating in their God-given roles, not in competition with each other, but in unity, will build God's house as he envisions it to be. The link is in Ephesians 5:21-25. And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For husbands, this means love your wives as Christ loved the church. He gave his life up for her. And in 1 Peter 3:8, finally, you should be of one mind. Sympathize with each other. Love each other as brothers and sisters. Be tenderhearted and keep a humble attitude. The words of chapter 27-26 reverberated through me as I read them. God's curse on anyone who does not give substance to the words of this revelation by living them. All respond, yes, absolutely. The command of verse 8 was to write the laws of God on stone, to incise them sharply. Both of these verses produce images in my mind of weighty importance. Moses is not just speaking to hear himself talk. He received these words directly from God on a fiery mountain. They were surely incised on his heart. The New Testament calls Christians living stones. It also said God has inscribed his law on our heart. And Jesus made plain the fact that God wants us to obey him from our heart. We need to take obedience to God seriously, not as a shallow effort, but deep, even a sharp commitment. Thankfully, Jesus has taken the curse of our disobedience on himself, and we are free from that part of Moses' message. But we're not free from the requirement to know God's law, to place its importance above all else in our life, to be a living sacrifice on his altar, and to obey it fully, giving substance to the words of this revelation by living them. There's only one proper response. Yes, absolutely. The link is 1 Peter 2:4-5. You are coming to Christ, who is the living cornerstone of God's temple. He was rejected by people, but he was chosen by God for great honor. And you are living stones. That is God building into his spiritual temple. What's more, you are his holy priest. Through the mediation of Jesus Christ, you offer spiritual sacrifices that please God. And Romans 10:8 says, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and on your heart. Well, that's all for today. I've placed additional scriptures for you in the description of this video if you want to go deeper. Until next time, I'm praying God opens your eyes to the beauty of his revelation and covenant with you. Have a blessed week.